Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore the Aquarius new moon, which occurs across the 9th or the 10th of February. This is an incredibly momentous event, but it's not because it's a supermoon, which it is. It's because it's the first Aquarius new moon with Pluto as a resident for 220 years. The last time this happened, we had the American War of Independence and the start of the Industrial Revolution in a leafy part of England. It is really potent. Now, we've heard a lot ever since the musical first came out about the whole concept of the age of Aquarius, but I feel that this event really is about the age of Aquarius, because not only do we have Pluto, the Sun and the Moon in the combination of the new moon, we also have Mercury, the planet of how we think, but how we speak and communicate, but also in the sign of Aquarius where it's exalted, but it also governs the second decan. So that's another strand of why the age of Aquarius really comes up for me. Also, on the 13th of February, Mars hustles and bustles its way into Aquarius, conjoining with Pluto, followed by Venus on the 16th. So we've got a hot amount of energy developing in the sign of Aquarius this month. That is why it's so momentous. If you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining me. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please share them. I try to interact with each one. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for all your views and your support. I'm making my way towards 120,000 subs. If you've already subbed, I'm very grateful. If you've yet to do so, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Now, I'm just going to give you a brief outline of how I'm going to structure the video. So it occurs at 20 degrees and 40 minutes, and that's just into the last decan of Aquarius. What does that mean? Also, it's very close to the fixed star Castor, which is really quite amazing because therefore that shares that characteristic with both Charles Dickens and also James Dean. So I'm going to discuss that a little bit with you. Now, in terms of the exact position at 20 degrees and 40 minutes, who's that going to be influencing the most? And will it just be on that exact point, or can we look either side? It is either side, but I will tell you about that. I'm then going to take a look at the solar event chart where we can all relate to this event, taking the ascendant at 0 degrees Aries on the vernal point, which puts Pluto, Mercury, the Sun and the Moon all in the glorious 11th house, which is very friendly, very sociable. It's very much about our connections to others. But there is a square to the higher octave ruler of the sign of Aquarius, Uranus. Now, the other ruler, Saturn, is in the watery sign of Pisces at the moment, pushing us all to take our emotional health much more seriously. But what we get with Aquarius is a tension between the more conservative energies of Saturn, which appreciates continuity. It's a fixed sign, but Uranus is very progressive, changeable, erratic, a lot of electric energy. That tension means that Aquarius people are sometimes keen to change things and sometimes keen to resist that change. That creates that tension. So that's going to be something we're all going to experience over the next month and the years to come. But also we have Mercury in the sign of Aquarius in a square with Jupiter, like Uranus, in Taurus. So I'll share that with you as well. But what about the event chart in terms of Placidus? Well, the incredible thing there is the ascendant is at 23 degrees in Libra. So that's obviously an air sign, and that means very much to do with how we relate to one another. So I'm going to share that, but that does put the Sun and the Moon and Mercury all in the 4th house, much more to do with emotions. Finally, I'm going to go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect over the next month. relating to your sign in terms of your sun or your ascendant. So this Aquarius new moon occurs across the 9th or the 10th. On the screen now, you can see exactly where it occurs in all the major cities of the world. At 20 degrees and 40 minutes in the sign of Aquarius, it's sub-ruled by the gracious energies of Venus. This is because Venus rules two signs, Taurus and Libra, but because of the air triplicity that Libra and Aquarius share, here the sub-rulership is much more to do with that Libran energy. So it's about relating. And the sign of Aquarius is about relating, it's about ideas. Have you ever wondered why it's an air sign, yet it's known as the water bearer? It's because Aquarius energy is intrinsically linked to baptism. It's about higher ideals. And because Uranus rules the sky and is very much to do with higher truths and is pushing us to get in touch with the most authentic side of ourselves at all times, that is why the higher truths and the baptism are linked together. The sign of Aquarius is the next sign in the zodiac after Capricorn. Capricorn is about the physical realm. It's very much to do with culmination in terms of how we connect to the world, our earthly ambitions, our goals, our need for success or status, nice car, nice house. Aquarius energy is asking us a completely different set of questions. And because on the 13th of February, Mars will hustle and bustle its way into Aquarius for 6 weeks, followed by the svelte Venus on the 16th. Both connect with Pluto. That is why I feel this is quite simply the age of Aquarius, really taking off in a big way. But that development from that Capricornian energy means that we're being asked to adapt away from what has become the model, particularly over the last 16 years of Capricorn being the home to Pluto, of being very caught up with that material world. So we're being asked to understand our relationship to one another, but not in any way to sacrifice our individuality. It's how we can work collaboratively, cooperatively. The whole concept of cooperation is a very Aquarius concept. And it means that where we can assist one another with different skills and we're supportive, we have a network, it really could see the reinvention of society. Because Thatcher's famous words, "there is no such thing as society," has really come home to roost. And it's because if we have a system that's based only on profit and not on people, that is going to have consequences. And we're seeing a lot of those consequences at the moment, the world over. The cost of accommodation, the cost of food, the cost of some of those more material ambitions that are having to the planet. So we all need to get more in touch with a more noble part of each and every one of us. We need to become more socially conscious. That doesn't necessarily mean we stop being good at business or trying to be ambitious or trying to do our best. We shouldn't necessarily have a bad attitude to making money. It's just our attitude to how we consume it and how we are with other people. So it's a massive shake-up that's coming. This new moon is really going to be the standard bearer for it. But what about Uranus in that right angle? Well, because this event is at 20 degrees and 40 minutes and the Venus sub-rulership is there, we're asked to retain our dignity. And so if people see things differently, we've seen a lot of polarized opinions, you know, on all the social media platforms, but we've also seen the social media platforms using a very authoritarian approach, which is not good. I had 28,000 followers on Facebook. Facebook took that down. They then wrote to me and said, no, I had done nothing wrong, but you can't speak to anyone at Facebook. We never got that back. That was years of hard graft and dedication just taken away. You can't speak to anyone. Now, in a way, that can be the downside of Aquarius energy, and Facebook was an Aquarius business, of where it's very detached and cold. Because remember, during its cycle, the sun in Aquarius is at the weakest point in its cycle. It's in detriment. The sun in Leo is the best part of its cycle. In terms of the moon, the best part of its cycle is Cancer. So this is a weak new moon in some ways, but it obviously is very futuristic. We're going to see a lot of emphasis on machines, on AI, robotics. We are going to see big changes to the employment landscape. It's inevitable. But there can be some good things. I have sleep apneas, 2 different types. I use a machine. They can actually change the machine and how it works remotely, which helps my health issue. So that's where technology can be such an ace. But certainly, we have an opportunity here to rethink our beliefs, our higher values, and it doesn't necessarily have to be based just on cash. Now, the influence is going to go on to the 10th of March, and because it's at 20 degrees and 40, I think anyone who's got planets between 17 and 20 degrees, so 3 degrees either side of the exact new moon, can be influenced by this. If you are a fixed sign, which is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio or Aquarius, you may find yourself, if you have planets within those 6 degrees, particularly feeling the energy, but it's an energy of excitement, an energy of freshness to set our intentions in a positive way. But if you are a fixed sign, if your nature is to resist a little bit, you may be a little bit more of the more traditional Aquarius people who prefer to stick with what they know rather than to try out different and fresh and innovative approaches. So that tension that goes between Saturn and Uranus, the 2 rulers of Aquarius, could play out in your situation. Now, I mentioned Castra. So Castra is a fixed star, and it's brilliant for writers, and it can see people who have it close to their sun ending up in very prominent, famous roles. James Dean and Charles Dickens are just 2 examples. It also has a reputation of being very closely linked to astrology. Astrology is going to become more mainstream. Big prediction, but that will unfold over the next 20 years. In terms of the moon, people's desire, if they have the moon near to Castra, is to gain that recognition, but not always is it a good thing. Their desire can override their relationships. Both the moon and the sun conjunct Castra can bring up some rather complex illnesses. Now, on the screen now, I'm showing the solar event chart. This is how we can all collectively relate to this event. We have Pluto, Mercury, the Sun and the Moon all in the 11th house. We have the ascendant at 0 degrees Aries on the vernal point, and there is Uranus, just 1 degree from being exactly square with the Sun and the Moon in house 2, along with Jupiter, which squares it with Mercury. Now, Jupiter square Mercury can actually be quite a good influence, as long as we don't promise more than we can realistically deliver. But what about having the modern ruler of Uranus, in a way, in a tense angle to this event? Well, I think it's saying that in some ways we will resist this revolution. We won't find it easy. There will be people who want to hold on to the old power. And the other part of the chart is the role of Venus and Mars, because Venus actually forges in Capricorn, the sign of tradition, a great link to Uranus. So there will be winners who are trying different things and being groundbreaking in their approach, who will make money from it, but perhaps also will provide services that will help others. But you can see that Mars is very close to Pluto. And although they're in different signs, that this is known as a dissociate conjunction, oh my word, that is powerful. That's desire central. And we have to use that desire wisely. So it's possible that some people will race into offering technologies or services which are not good for humankind. You can work it out for yourself, you know, whether it is to do with implants in the brain or it is to do with the technology that's going to come in and threaten jobs. These aren't necessarily good things. They may be portrayed as good things if it can get someone who's been obviously paralysed up and walking, that's a good thing. But where will that technology end up? That's a question you can ask yourself too. But I think in an overall context, over the next 4 weeks, if you're someone who's very idealistic, you're going to encounter someone who's not, and that could cause quite the standoff. On the other hand, if you're someone who's very set in your ways, someone could try to enthuse you with a fresh approach that you may find a little bit challenging too. So that 11th second house energy is where the money, Taurus, is clashing with the idealism, Aquarius. That is absolutely the case. But let's look at the event chart from a natal perspective based on Greenwich. Now the wonderful thing about this event chart is that the ascendant is conjunct Speaker, another fixed star, which is very, very prodigious. But also it's conjunct the part of fortune. And if you look at the position between the ascendant and the part of fortune, the sun and the moon, it's nearly 120 degrees. So it's nearly a trine, just short of a trine. So I feel that we can be expressive. You know, if you are somebody who has been caught up in working extraordinarily hard, dealing with the demands of Pluto through Capricorn, don't be surprised if you find yourself wanting to join in and have some fun like you haven't done for quite a while, which is really exciting. But you can also see that ironically Mercury, the Moon and the Sun are in house 4. They're clashing with Uranus and Jupiter in house 7. So I feel that there could be some tensions around close emotional or family relationships if there are comings and goings and unpredictability about who lives or who stays or goes. Changes can be quite swift, but so can changes of plan. And I feel generally relationships can be a little bit stressed by all this change that's coming in the world at large. You can also see in this event chart that Pluto stays in the 3rd house along with Mars and Venus. So how we express ourselves, we are going to encounter people who have very, very powerful control over communicational systems. And, you know, whether it's state interference, which we know is happening with technology, the internet, that is very, very worrying. I don't think I need to make it absolutely clear which state does it the most. I'm not saying no other states do it. But so that could be where more dubious, nefarious techniques are used to control information. For example, around records or around videos watching us moving around, how much scrutiny and surveillance do we really want? That could see somebody use their power in a wrong way over this next month. But also it could inspire us all to make that transition from the Capricornian energy, which can have great benefits when it comes to pushing us to work hard, be reliable, respect authority, respect, I don't mean authority that wants to dominate us, but authority that comes from experience and wisdom. And that could be our own authority. And also it can be understanding the continuity in our lives. All those things are very valuable. Capricorn energy isn't only the dark side of greed, corruption, sex and money. It can have some very good qualities as well. So we can find our voice to voice back at people we don't feel are using that power wisely, that's for sure. So we are going to see some industrial disputes. We have seen farmers making their way into Paris on their tractors, a big collection of energy in Texas in terms of truckers, and we've seen that in Canada, we've seen it in Romania, we've seen it in Poland. There is a coming together, but unfortunately there is also another dark collective coming together, and that of course is led by China, because if they can link up to the Taliban or they can link up to North Korea or states in Africa, it gives them more global penetration and control. Don't believe they're doing it for anyone else's best interests other than their own. It's all grooming, and China's chart is very much linked to this Aquarian age. So we need to be mindful of that, especially with the political absence of leadership in the UK and the US. So we need some new energy coming through from this age of Aquarius. It's not showing itself quite yet. It's going to be interesting, but we need to all come together to find our voice for where we feel things are unfair and speak truth to power. I'm now going to go through each of the zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. But if you would like to ascend above zodiac astrology and really grasp the excitement of natal astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of birth data of time, date and place, or date and place if you don't know your time, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights, an intimate understanding of the patterns that have played out in your life so far, but also my special package of 30% off. You can get your 12-month forecast. Now that is the transits in the sky interacting with your natal blueprint, totally unique to you. And that can help guide your moves. And please see the link beneath this video for more, but you can also get your Zodiac, Chinese, Love and Indian forecasts for the next year totally free as my gift. So Aries, if you have found yourself trying to deal with a big shift around your work, and some things have come to a close with Saturn in your 12th house, or there has been some confusion with Neptune there as well, this can definitely be an exciting, bright part of the year for you, particularly with the North Node still in your sign and the total solar eclipse to come on the 8th of April. And what this is about really is perhaps having the trust in the process to leave behind something that maybe has been faithful and reliable, but has in some ways been repressing your passion. So if you've been doing something that's been servicing your lifestyle at a certain level, but actually hasn't really been exciting you, you're being asked to set your intentions on something which does. But it doesn't mean to say it won't be that it will be an exactly straight line, because Uranus has been in your 2nd house now for near to 6 years, and that's been causing a lot of tension and instability at times, perhaps a lack of constantness around your resources, or is it around your self-worth? But you have an opportunity to get together with people who excite you, whether it's your friends who support a sports team, whether it's around a cause that you're really invested in, whether it's around your personal interests, whether it is around your work, whether it is around doing something you've long wanted to do that would really inspire you. Write that book, go on that course. Whatever it is, try to rise above the mundane over the next month. Seize the opportunity with both hands. So Taurus, over the last few years, the planets have really been provoking you to get in touch with a Aurora, more stripped down version of who you are. And what I mean by that is that your preference for a steady, reliable routine and structure is a great thing to have, because you bring some glue to the overall zodiac. You are the foundational point. You're very much linked, for example, to agriculture and food, your appreciation of cooking, good wine, the more sensuous part of life, the arts. All these things are really glorious parts of your nature. But Uranus has been, and it depends of course how it's been impacting on your personal astrology, it's been pushing you to be perhaps a little more edgy, to take some risks, to step outside your comfort zone. And Pluto, in another way, has been having a similar effect, asking you to download more information, experiment more, be more spontaneous, perhaps travel, and maybe to do with, in some way, languages or university studies. Your whole experience has been very exciting. But if you're not very satisfied with what you do professionally, or your connection to your work isn't enriching you in the way you want, despite all of this, you may find that some massive changes are set to come your way. Now, it could be that it depends on what stage of your life you are. You may decide to retire or go part-time, or to start your own business, or to change from one employer that you've been with for a period, where you've been a steadfast employee, to go to something different and new. But one of the things you're being asked to do by this new moon is to be much more provocative with yourself about your potential to take on responsibility, positions of leadership, and seize the limelight. If you are someone who's a bit reserved, lacks a little bit of confidence, or perhaps doesn't feel that you're able to do certain roles, do not speak to yourself, don't talk yourself down. Check that. Think that you can step up and do things in a different way that can enrich you, and they can enrich you financially as well in terms of personal satisfaction. But you have a marvellous opportunity over the years to come, and this is the big trigger, to raise your profile in such a significant way. So Gemini, I'm really excited by this new moon for you. Uranus has been a little bit of an aggravant, particularly if you're somebody who does tend to rationalize your emotions or is a little bit fearful of the more psychological side of life. But the great thing now is you're going to just draw down so much information and knowledge, not just over the next month, but for many years to come. You're going to travel more widely. You're going to share your skills and ideas more widely. If you're someone who's always wanted to write that proverbial book, it's going to be coming out before too long. Most of all, you're coming out of that very, very deep transition of Pluto going through the sign of Capricorn, but also Saturn. And that 8th house energy is where you're most invested. It's also very psychological energy about ends and beginnings. But it can be about rebirth. If you've really worked with that Plutonian energy, you're coming into this new era full of possibilities. And it's all about that side of you that has a great gift for communication, but sometimes perhaps for little snippets of information. Now you're being pushed to see the big picture. The 9th house is actually very Jupiterian and it's very Sagittarian. And Sagittarius and Aquarius have commonality. They both love freedom, both love independence, love to be free spirits. So that kind of energy could see you break free of a repressive love relationship which hasn't been good for you for some while. It may be a painful transition. It will be good for you in time. You can also see you being a little bit more adventurous, perhaps a bit more sporty in a physical sense, doing more walking or cycling, going scrambling or climbing, anything which tests you out a little bit. But it could also be that if you are someone who loves travel anyway, you're going to find the more cultural and historical parts of your adventures a much bigger part of your experience in this month to come, but also in the years to come too. But the one thing I will tell you is the 9th house energy of Aquarius will potentially aggravate the 12th house energy of Uranus. So if there is something that's not quite settled in your situation, a perspective, some information around you, maybe some people that you're involved with, some big truths are going to come out over the next month, and it may not necessarily be easy, but once they are out, it will help you to reset and go again. But this time you're going to be freeing yourself from strands, people, situations which no longer serve your greater purpose. So Cancer, over the last 16 years, Pluto has given you plenty of experience in how to set your boundaries. But one of your responses when things get tense around relationships can reflect, when you're feeling stressed, a little bit more the energy of Capricorn. It can be quite distancing. You want to back off from situations which can be perceived as being quite cold. I feel that what you're being asked to do now is to step forwards a little bit, particularly with people where they may not see things exactly the same as you, but you can at least have a dialogue. But that dialogue will need to be much more psychological. If you are someone who has a penchant for any kind of mystery, spy story, understanding of things like astrology, palmistry, psychic phenomenon, that's already going to captivate you much more, not just over the next month, but over many years to come. But also, the 8th house can be where we learn a great deal more about getting close. It's where we can be devotional. If that's been an issue for you, if Pluto's helped you to reinforce your boundaries to a degree that actually there's been some oxygen missing in your connections, that's what you're being asked to investigate. And one of the things with 8th house energy is sometimes we have to get into a little bit of a tussle in order to get the outcome. If we sit outside, protect our boundaries, the 7th house, we won't know what would happen if we got closer. So that's the fascinating thing for you. Now, the angle between the Sun and the Moon and Uranus suggests you could have some friends around you who may be actually a little bit more jealous of you than you realise. Watch out for group politics, particularly over the next month. So Leo, this new moon for you is very much about relationships. But the 7th house isn't just about how we interact with people. It's also what we want. It's also being clearer about that to other people in a way that they can hear as well. So having Mercury in your 7th house is a great opportunity to articulate your message. But what about that 10th house energy of Uranus? Well, if you do work with people or a person who tends to be very unpredictable, I think you're going to push back more, particularly over the next month. You are going to let them know what's acceptable to you or not. So it could make you a little bit more on the front foot. The 7th house is not just about relationships. It can be about where we experience opposition. It's where we encounter challenges, rivals, and in more traditional astrology, it was known as open enemies. The people we know that don't necessarily have our best interest at heart. So a lot of your purpose is going to move from the dedication, sacrifice and hard work of the last 16 years with Pluto into stepping forwards and being much more conscious of what you need, what you're prepared to give, but also what you want from others. And Uranus in the 10th house suggests that if anyone is in some way trying to control that process, that's where you could become much more rebellious yourself. So Virgo, this new moon is very much in keeping with the core energy of your sign. It is about getting in touch with all the basic processes, your daily structure, and trying to find where you can make some improvements. But being the sign you are, you have a great appreciation of order anyway. So it's not just about decluttering. It's not just about trying something in a slightly different way. It's about a fundamental reset in terms of your overall approach to life. That could be around your work, it could be around nutrition, it could be around exercise, it could be around where you provide services or support to others. You can often be very sacrificing around them, but because Uranus is in the mix, if you've been doing a lot of give for a very long time, you may find over the next month there's part of you that's becoming more resistant to the give, and you need to give more to you. So making sure the heart of your being, your sign is very much about virtue, about clarity, about good health, about balance. It's a lovely sign, Virgo, and of course your great sense of humour. But really in recent years Uranus has been a much more provocative influence, and just going along with how it has always been, I think is something that you yourself are going to push back against. But that could create some conflicts within yourself. For example, a job may bore you, but you may feel fearful about changing it because you like the order of it. So those are the kind of questions and situations you may be confronted with over the next 4 weeks. But I feel you could start to think a lot about a new job, a new service, a new approach, and actually, do you know, it can be so enriching for you. So Libra, this is a truly exciting new moon, but not least because of the ascendant and the part of fortune in the Placidus chart based on Greenwich being in your sign. So that glittering array of energy in the sign of Aquarius is really giving you a massive push to showcase your talent, your personality, your warmth, your affection. It's been such a bruising time with Pluto, Saturn, and obviously we also had Jupiter as well, moving through the sign of Capricorn. You are obviously from the 2nd of September going to have that brief final sojourn of Pluto in Capricorn. But for now, this is a chance to really go for it and embrace a more exciting, stimulating, risk-taking. The 5th house is the sector of chance and speculation. If you've been sitting in a role because you want to protect your security, it may be good for you at one level, but draining your spirit in another. How can you reactivate the part of you that really makes you feel alive? That's the challenge for you. What about Uranus? Well, it's possible in a romantic relationship. If someone is clingy, someone tends to want to dominate your time a little bit, you may find that a little bit difficult and you may have to set some boundaries. Or it could be that you want to bring a new relationship into your world that really makes your pulse race. Because the one thing you're going to be demanding from now for many years to come is an essential sense of excitement and feeling that you're really alive with possibilities. Scorpio, for you, the collection of energy in the sign of Aquarius is very much about how you feel. But our main relationship should be with ourselves. How do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about your immediate environment, where you live? Is it the physical environment, or is it the environment of your soul, if you like? Pluto, very much linked to karma, the soul, moving into the 4th house. Some big questions can get asked over the years to come, but because Uranus is in the 7th house, and has been very provocative over the last 6 years, maybe some things that are to do with your stability and security are linked to relationships. And if there is a relationship which is very unstable, changeable, doesn't give you that sense of serenity that all these planets in the 4th house are asking you to have, that's going to be something you're going to have to look at. But it really wouldn't be a surprise if you're going to change where you live, do some kind of reconstruction, repairs, redecoration, or if you work from home, you're going to create a better space within that home, or there's going to be a change in the family dynamic, a new addition, people leaving home, coming back home. It's all going to be very much about the core of your life. The fulcrum will be where you live, how you live there, but also your relationship with yourself. Sagittarius, I'm really excited for you. What a rip-roaring new moon this can be for you. It's going to bring in a lot of excitement, a lot of extra sparkle, vivacity. You're going to be having zippy conversations with people. You're really going to feel so much more upbeat than you have for a very long time. Of course, because of the energy in Uranus, the 6th house, that's your structure. So there's going to be some nervous tension over the next month in particular, and particularly if you try to do too much. So it is going to be important, however optimistic or uplifted you feel by certain possibilities, you slow it all down and focus on the things that are most essential. But you are going to find that your innate sense of enthusiasm and bubbliness is really going to be reignited in quite the way, not just through this event, but over the rest of February too. So Capricorn, for you, this new moon is very much about resources, because the 2nd house is about how we feel about ourselves, our core values, our foundation, but it is about everyday money. The 5th house, where Uranus is and Jupiter, is the sector of speculation, risk, but also where we like to splash out, be a bit more indulgent, generous, affectionate. So possibly this new moon is saying to you, if you want to improve your financial lot, you may have to do it in a steady way. And if there is part of you that wants to kick back and be much more rebellious about how you approach your resources, particularly if you're in a love relationship where you each see consumption in a different way, that could cause some tensions. But equally, that 2nd house energy combining with Uranus could see you having some brilliant ideas, but there is some risk attached to pursuing them. And because your nature can be a bit risk averse, that is the big question for you. Aquarius, such an exciting event because it's all about the big reset. And I think you're going to find, particularly if you're born in the first 10 degrees of Aquarius, that if life at times have seemed very difficult because people don't seem to really understand who you are, that the world around you and me is going to change. It's going to become more Aquarian. So the things that you're really passionate about and invested in are going to become much more the norm. But if you are one of those Aquarius with a more Saturnian feel, you could find yourself being pushed into being a little bit more experimental. If you are someone who's naturally experimental, it may be around your living arrangements, it could be around your family situation, that sudden changes or alterations can play out over the next month. But one thing's for sure, you need to showcase the most authentic individual side of your nature in a much less fearful way. So put what other people feel to one side. It's about living your life on your terms more, whilst retaining your nobility, your humility, your kindness, key Aquarius strands. But if you have lacked a little bit of confidence to strut your stuff in a bit of a novel way, go for it now. You're really going to tear things up over the next month, but just don't be surprised if someone close to you finds it all a little bit challenging. So Pisces, for you, the new moon occurs in the 12th house, and 12th house new moons are the trickiest. Uranus in the third 12th house energy suggests some information can come into the open over the next month which could prove unsettling. It may be to do with a past relationship, it may be to do with a past connection, it may be part of your psychology, fears and shadow side, which somehow comes under greater scrutiny. Maybe someone's going to make an observation, Uranus or Jupiter, your ruler, in the third house, in a way that's not particularly welcome. Maybe they're going to psychoanalyze you as you see it, and it may feel mightily uncomfortable. But the 12th house in traditional astrology, which is where this event occurs, is unfortunately about hidden enemies. But if you don't feel that you have hidden enemies, because that's obviously a very ancient term, what we can all have is parts of ourselves that aren't very integrated. Now later in February, the 19th, when the sun moves into your sign, and then Mercury on the 23rd, and they both connect with Saturn, you're going to come back into your strength. So you are going to go through a few weeks where you need to do some soul searching, and it's a great time to declutter in your physical environment, but also think about past events that didn't go well and try to let them go. If there are things that were truly grievous, but you've never spoken to anyone about it, it would be a great opportunity to ventilate those hurts, because it will bring a much greater sense of space within your body. That's how I see Gestalt. If we let go of emotions, they're trapped in our limbs, and that can be very helpful to you. So if you're interested in psychology, healing, psychic phenomenon, and reflection, retreats, this is going to be a really good new moon for you. If you're resistant to all those areas, you're being provoked and pushed to really open up, because if you resist it, Pluto will find ways to change things in a way which you're not so open to, and that can actually be a more turbulent experience than being more philosophical about how Pluto works. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this Aquarius new moon video. If you'd like to check out my weekly forecast, I break them into each 12 individual signs. I do that for monthlies too. Please see the links below. Thank you so much. Take care and goodbye.